Hey friends, my name is Abby and I'm at our Clifton Road campus. We missed you guys so much, but as you can see, I'm here in our kids space at church and I want to read you guys a super special story from our Bible today. So I know many of you guys have this Bible at home, so if you want to go get it, we can follow along and read together. And we are going to be reading one of my favorite stories from the Bible. And it's about a boy named David. So we're going to be on page 122 if you want to follow along with me. All right, ready? The young hero and the horrible giant from 1 Samuel 17. God's people had some scary enemies, but the Philistines were the scariest of them all. And now the Philistines had come to fight them. The Philistines had a secret weapon, Goliath. Goliath was a terrifying soldier, and worst of all, a giant. A giant so strong and so tall and so scary that no one had ever been able to fight him and live to tell the tale. So there they were, the Philistines, standing on the top of one hill, God's people standing on top of the other. Every day Goliath came out and shouted, "Send your best soldier to fight me. If he wins, we will be your slaves. But if I win, you will be our slaves." No one spoke and no one moved. "Chickens," Goliath bellowed, "your God cannot save you. I'll rip your heads off and have you on toast." His beady, greedy eyes glowered at them hungrily from under his horrible helmet, as if any minute he really might just gobble them all up. And he laughed his terrible laugh. Ha, 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 ha. It boomed, echoing horribly around and around the dry, dry valley. Here's God's people, and then here are the Philistines. And that is Goliath, a giant. Well, Goliath might just as well have been a green, slimy monster with 3 heads, because God's people froze with fear. Their eyes glazed over and they turned deathly pale. They knew if someone didn't do something quick, if someone didn't save them, but God would do something. He would send somebody to save them. Now you remember that David was the youngest son of Jesse. Well, his brothers were soldiers in the army. One day when David brought his brothers their lunches, he saw Goliath, and he saw how scared everybody was. "Don't be afraid," David said. "I'll fight him for you." "But you're only a little shepherd boy," the king said, "and Goliath is a great soldier. How will you fight him?" "God will help me," David said. So the king gave David his royal armor to wear, but it was too heavy and too big, and David couldn't even walk. "I won't need this," David said. Instead, David picked out 5 smooth stones from the stream. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He took his slingshot and walked towards Goliath, step by step by step. There's David putting on his armor, but it was too big. And there's David picking out his 5 stones from the river. I wonder what he's going to do with the stones. Goliath walked toward David. Thud, thud, thud. "You," Goliath peered down at the small boy. "I'm little," David shouted up to him, "but God is great." Goliath laughed an even terribler laugh than usual. Ha, 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 ho. It went. With just one swing of his giant sword, Goliath could finish the boy off. But David kept going. It wasn't how strong you are or how many swords and spears you have that will save you. It is God who saves you. This is God's battle, and God always wins his battles. David put a stone in his sling. He swung it around and let it go. The little stone flew, whizzed like a bullet through the air, and struck Goliath, thud, right between the eyes. Goliath stopped laughing. He stumbled and staggered and crash, fell dead. When the Philistines saw Goliath was dead, they ran away. And when God's people saw them running away, they cheered. God had saved his people. David was a hero. And many years later, God would send his people another young hero to fight for them and to save them. But this hero would fight the greatest battle the world has ever known. Do you know who that hero that God was going to send? That's right, it's Jesus. And that's why I love this story, because it shows us that David was a hero, but that we have an even greater hero that God sent for us, and his name was Jesus. And he died on the cross for our sins so that we could live forever in heaven with him when we believe and trust in Jesus. And that is just such an awesome story from our Bible. Now guys, I've loved reading this story with you today. If you have any favorite Bible stories that you want us to read, let us know, and then maybe next week one of our friends can read you that story.